Okay, I think we are just about live. I'm going to go ahead and type something in the comments here. So if you're with me live, hi, how are ya? Who is with me? Go ahead and type on in the comments if you're with me and you can hear what's going on. I am going to keep the replay of the event up, so if you're seeing this on replay, let me know that you're here. If you have any questions as we go, feel free to put them in the comments. I will come in and check the comments and answer those questions. So those of you who are with me live, greatly appreciate it. And actually, those of you who watch on replay, same thing. So we are in, I believe this is week 6 now. So of a 21-week training, I'm taking you through effectively a macro level view of the whole system across 20 different skill sets that you have to have in order to be most effective, to be optimally effective with real estate investing, where you put yourself in a position to really be able to buy any house from any seller in any market without using any of your own money or any of your own credit. That's where you want to be, because it allows your conversion ratio to go through the roof. You're agnostic to what the seller says in terms of answering your questions. You don't really care. You just listen effectively and plug them into the right solution along the continuum of alternatives that sellers have as far as selling their house. So that means that any seller who is selling a house, that's the only requirement. That's the only qualification. They have to be willing to sell the house. It's not a matter of we got to get the house at 60 cents on the dollar. It's not a matter of the house has to be free and clear or have a low mortgage to value ratio so that we can make a low offer and pay off any lien and still have the opportunity to buy the house in a way that makes sense. It's simply a matter of does the seller have a house that they're willing to sell? Whatever way they choose to sell the house, we're capable of servicing that choice. We're sort of like the Amazon.com of real estate investing, in the same sense that I can go on Amazon and get anything. I can go get these Dr. Dre Beats headphones. I could go buy a stack of these styrofoam cups. I could buy, whatever, calculators, all this stuff I got laying around here. I could get anything on Amazon. Whatever the seller wants to do, we want to be able to service that, because it allows you to be cool, calm, and collected when you're on the phone with the seller. We're simply getting the seller to make us an offer. Now, the seller already has made us an offer, right? Because they've usually listed the price for the house. That's their offer, is the price. However, not all sellers realize that they can get a higher price if they're willing to take monthly payments for a period of time until we pay them off in full. And there's a number of ways that we can arrange those kinds of deals. We can take over debt, we can create new financing, we can lease the property from them, we could buy the house for cash, but we need 90 days to close on it. There's all different kinds of ways that we can structure these deals, and that was the subject of earlier sessions, which if you haven't seen, you might want to go back and check some of those out. But all we're doing is we're taking what their answer to our questions are and plugging them into the right slot. And those slots are enveloped by really 3 overarching strategies. We're either going to get a price or terms that are so good that we're just going to close right away, even before we have our buyer lined up. Okay, we'll come out of pocket a little bit, deal with that, and then when our buyer comes in, it'll more than offset whatever we've invested into this property. Those are deals that we close right away. Those happen to be my favorite ones that we can close right away on. Other times you're going to get some kind of a good mix of price or terms, and you're a little bit too nervous about closing on it right away. Maybe you don't have enough money to cover the closing cost, or possibly a small down payment, and maybe a couple monthly payments until you get your buyer. So you don't want to close right away. The terms just aren't good enough. So in those cases, we're going to give ourselves 90 days to line our buyer up and simultaneously close, effectively buying the property from the seller out of the money that we're getting from our buyer, and then we make the spread. We can either stay in the middle, we can exit the scene. There's ways that you can manage that congruent with what I talked about during our deal structuring a couple weeks ago. And then the third piece is some people are just going to want to cash out and they're not going to give you any kind of a price break. That's fine. We're going to do that sometimes ourselves. But in those cases, those sellers, they do really need to accept that it's very likely that the buyer who's going to occupy the property, who's willing to pay full retail price, is probably going to be bringing in a bank loan. They're going to have to wait for that bank loan to come in, and that buyer is almost always going to be represented by a realtor because realtor services are free for those kinds of buyers. So the pond that they're fishing in, the fish in that pond are all represented by realtors because why wouldn't they be? It's free to them. So we talked a lot about that last week. So that means that seller is going to have to accept that they're going to get less money for their house than they would if they dealt with us. But it's an acceptable trade-off, right? They get everything completed and then they move on, but they are going to get less money. So if they want more money, and a lot of people do want more money, then they might be better off considering our alternative. And that's what we're trying to determine. We're trying to qualify them for if they're willing to do that or if they're not. If they're not, then we're going to have a realtor on our team, or we are going to have a license ourselves, and we're going to be able to pick up a massive amount of listings, either for our team member or for us. So in that sense, we're able to monetize, we're able to profit any situation that a seller chooses in terms of disposing of their house, in terms of selling their house. Okay, so that's the backdrop. Now, I'm going to go a little bit fast, but this is recorded so you can come back on replay. The folks who are in my private client group, we take our time. You know, once you're in with me, you're in with me for life. This isn't like a typical coaching program where you got to re-up every 6 months. Okay, once you're in with me, you're in with me. And the reason for that is it helps me. You pay very little for the coaching if we decide that we're a good fit. And then what it does is I just keep helping you. I don't care if it takes years. We're going to have a relationship for life. And I want to keep that relationship alive because oftentimes it leads to deal flow for me later. I don't have to scour the earth for deals. People bring them to me. I've got them trained. They're out making money. They're doing well. Some kind of deal comes along that needs, more money or more financing than they want to go out and get for themselves. And they want, or it's more complicated type of structure. Could be a commercial deal, and they want a joint venture. And then that's where big money can be made from me. For me and for them. So I use the coaching as somewhat of a loss leader. So when in my coaching program, when I go through this script, I go very carefully through it. I go very slow with all the granularity. I'm not going to be able to do that in what we have left here of 20 minutes. So it's going to go a little bit fast. But I'm capable of doing that in that type of environment because there's no rush. Right? Once you come in, you're in. There's no rush. You've got effectively a coach on call, if you will, to help you with your real estate deals for as long as you have a real estate career. That's one of the reasons why the program is so valuable. But I don't want to waste time talking about the value proposition of the coaching. I want to bring you into the script. I'm just telling you that you might have to listen to this a couple times because I can't explain all the reasons why I have this orchestrated in the way that I do. And orchestrated is the right word because I've innovated on this script over 30 years of real estate investing, and I found that this is the best way to get deals. And there's reasons why I use the verbiage I use. There's reasons why this flows in the way it does. And I'm going to do the best to give you as much as I can about that. But you'll understand it a lot better if you come into the coaching. But let me give you sort of the framework here that we're operating with, okay? This is really, really important, guys and gals, because it's one thing to understand the strategy. It's one thing to understand all the different deal structures. But if you can't take what you have in your brain in terms of buying property subject to, taking over debt, buying properties free and clear, creating owner financing, creating seller financing structures, using leases with options to buy, lease purchase agreements, all the different types of structures that we use. That might be in your brain. You might totally get it. You might totally understand it. But you probably aren't going to make very much money if you can't do this. If you can't get on the phone and have a competent conversation with the seller, putting it in simple terms that the seller can understand so that they might be compelled to do business with you. There's lots of things that I understand in my brain that I can't explain very well, like my kid's algebra. I was helping her with her algebra homework this week, and I learned it one way, and I haven't really thought about explaining it for a long time. I understand how to do it. Like, I put the problem in front of me, I can get the right answer, but I can't explain it to her because I haven't practiced it, right? So you have to get good at, just because you know something and you know how it works, you've got to get good at this part of it, because guess what? It takes two to tango. The seller has to understand what you're doing. The seller has to be willing. The seller needs simplicity, and you have to be good on the phone with the seller. And that's what this script enables you to do. Okay? So let's jump into it. So when I get on the phone with the seller, it goes like this. So, hi, this is Joel Sangerman, and I'm calling about possibly buying the house at 123 Main Street. You should know that I'm not calling to list this house. I'm a buyer. Okay, now why do I put that in there? I put that in there because these homeowners who are selling their house without realtors or for sale by owner, they're getting peppered, literally peppered all day long with realtors calling with some kind of, basically with the same script about how they have a buyer coming into town, they want to preview the house, they just want to get into the house and meet them and try to get a listing agreement, right? These sellers get sick of that. So I let them know right up front, I'm not calling to list the house, I'm a buyer. And then I let them know, look, I've only got a couple minutes myself, but is this going to be an okay time to talk? Why do I let them know that? Because people tend to want to tell you their whole life story, right, about their house. And I don't need to know all that. I'm trying to get to the conclusion. I'm trying to determine if this is a house I want to focus in on or not. So I want to leave myself the ability to say, hey, look, I'm going to be running into a meeting. So, let them know up front, you're in a hurry. This won't take long. I've only got a couple minutes, but let's go through some things to see if this is a house that I'm going to buy. Okay? So I use that right up front. Now, what I like to do is let them know, hey, I've learned a little bit about the house already, and I think it might be the perfect house for what I'm looking for. That's true. Every house is the perfect house until I learn otherwise, because that's what I'm trying to get a supply of to meet the tremendous demand that I have from all of our buyers that are out there. So every house is perfect until it's not. And I'm trying to determine if it's not. If they have a house, it's perfect until proven otherwise. That's the assumption I make. So I let everybody know the house is perfect for what I'm looking for, because I'm looking for a house. Now, I don't care if it's in Flint, Michigan or in Vail, Colorado. Okay, if the terms and the price make sense for me, then it's the perfect house. So we're going to learn that. Okay, so they have the raw material for perfection. They have a house for sale. So the first thing that I do, guys, look, forget all this nonsense about square footages. How many garages do you have? Why are you selling? How many beds? How many baths? What kind of repairs are needed on the front? Like, you might want to learn that later. Of course, you want to learn that later. You do not need to get all that up front. All you're doing is setting the stage to piss somebody off. Nobody wants to spend 20 minutes on the phone with you and then have you rip the rug out from under them where you're like, well, hey, would you take monthly payments on it? Okay, you got to be upfront with people. Be transparent. People buy based on your character and your competency. Show some character and don't string them along for 15, 20 minutes before getting to the meat of the matter. Now, having said that, I will always start with price. Why do I start with price? I want to know if I can get this property for a steal of a price. Those are needles in the haystack. You don't get as many of those deals as we used to, because everyone can learn the price of their house on Zillow, right? Or Realtor.com even. So these deals are fewer and farther between where you're going to get a house at 60 cents on the dollar. That's why you see so many people offering their wholesale courses for $1. Because wholesaling is an easy concept to understand, but to implement it, you're talking about a numbers game, because so many houses and so many sellers aren't going to qualify and be willing to do that. But some of them will, enough of them will, that I want to see if I can get a really low price. And also, I don't want to get into the terms aspect until I've already learned what their lowest price is. Otherwise, they're going to be giving you a higher price because they know they're giving you terms. So the first thing we negotiate is the price. And it's not even that we negotiate, we just ask them questions. I'm letting them negotiate against themselves, right? They're making me the offer. So I let folks know right up front, hey, I'm not represented by a realtor. I'm going to be buying the house without a realtor. That saves you a commission. So given that, can you give me an idea, since you won't have to pay a commission on this, and I'm sure you've contemplated that maybe you would, for a cash buyer, what would be the room that you would have on that price? How low can you go on that price? Think of it from the standpoint if, I'm coming in with a briefcase of cash to the title company next week. They're going to make sure the cash is not counterfeit, it's good cash, and we don't have to wait on a whole bunch of contingencies and things. If I was to buy it like that, because sometimes we do, no realtor, and we can cash you out of this thing whenever you're ready, as soon as possible, what would be the least you could take in that context? That'll get you downfield as far as how low they'll go on price, okay? So we learn that first. And then I'll just push just a tiny bit. I'll just push a tiny bit when they give me a number, no matter what the number is, and I'll be like, I'll pause. Well, if needed to get the deal done, you could probably go just a little bit lower on that, couldn't you? And most of the time they'll be like, well, you haven't even seen the house. Come out, see the house, and I'll leave a little room in there, but I'm not going to negotiate against myself on the phone. Okay, so now we're not going to push anymore, right? So what we'll do is we'll know in our head that they're pretty much close to full market value. If it's like a steal of a deal, then you want to get out there and get the contract on it, right? But if they're pretty close to about where the market is, then what I like to do is throw them a bone. And I'll say, okay, well, great. That does sound pretty fair compared with the other houses that I've seen. If you're the listener of that, you're like, oh, okay, well, this guy's not trying to beat me down on price. He's acknowledging that this is a reasonable price that I'm asking for. Okay, that's good. So you want that. So it's, hey, that sounds pretty fair compared with the other houses I've seen. And to be perfectly candid, I don't mind paying top dollar like that if, as long as it'll appraise and as long as it makes sense for me to buy it. But we'll just figure out the price a little bit later, like you said. So we've set the stage. We have the price. Now we're going to get into the meat of the matter, right? We've learned what they can do on price. You'll thank me for having you do that later on, because if they do decide to do terms with you, that's when they tend to want the price to be higher. But if you already learned what they are willing to do for cash, you can usually keep that price or get it lower, which helps you. So at this point, now we're just going to be totally transparent. Not that we weren't up front, but this is where I don't get into a whole bunch of crap. We're going to go right into it with them and just tell them the straight up truth. So look, I want you to know up front, we're like 1 minute into this conversation, by the way. We haven't wasted anybody's time. So I want you to know up front that I'm not going to live in the house myself. I'm going to be buying the house and I'm going to be reselling it to somebody that I'm helping get financed. Okay, they pay me for that. I make money on this through the financing effort. So because of that, I don't mind paying you a full price because I'm going to get a premium from them. Now, you don't care if I make money reselling the house for more than I give you, as long as you get paid, right? I've never heard anybody have a problem with that. They're always, knock yourself out, kid. As long as I get what I want, I'm good. You do whatever the hell you want with it. What do I care at that point, as long as I get what I want? Okay? There's a reason why we want to make that clear up front. And then we'll tell them, that's pretty much what I figured. So here's the way it'll work, so that you can get as much money as possible. Okay, so now I'm getting ready to go into the terms discussion here. This is the fork in the road in terms of where we go next. Okay, so I let them know, hey, so here's the way it'll work. By the way, what have you done? You've established that you can agree with them on price. They're happy about that. You've been straight up with them that you're not going to live in the house. You've told them what your plan is. So have you demonstrated character already? Yes, people like that. They like the genuineness. They like the authenticity. Now it comes down to a matter of their willingness and your expertise if they can trust you to manage a transaction like the one we're going to describe. Okay, so where we go from there is, all right, well, here's the way it'll work so that you can get as much money as possible. And I say it like that and I pause. Everybody wants to get as much money as possible. As soon as you tell them they're going to get as much money as possible, they're listening more intently. Okay, so here's the way it'll work so you can get as much money as possible. I'll pay all your closing costs. I'll buy it as is. I'll close whenever you're ready. But most importantly, I'll give you full price for the house. The only thing that I require in exchange for that is that you have a little bit of patience. But I'll pay you extra for that patience. So what I mean is that I'd make you a monthly payment or I'd rent it from you for a little while until we get you paid off entirely at the full price we'll agree to. That's fair with you, isn't it? And they're either going to be a yes, a no, or a maybe to that. And that's going to determine where we go next. So let me recap this in a little bit more of a dialogue form. So you've told them, hey, I don't mind paying you a full price because I'm going to be getting a premium from the person that I'm reselling it to, from my buyer. And you don't care if I make money on it as long as you get what you want, right? They'll say yes. And then sometimes you want to explain to them that, look, here's the thing. Your price is totally fair. It's just that very frequently when we come in and buy houses for cash, we are doing it where we can get a discount. You don't have to do that on your house, and it doesn't sound like you'd entertain that anyway. But usually with our cash, what we'll do is we'll buy from banks or we'll buy from entities where we can get a discount. So I can get you full price on this, okay? I can get you as much more money than you're gonna get anywhere else on this house, quite frankly. And I'll even pay your closing costs for you. I'll buy it as is. I'll close whenever you're ready. But most importantly, I'll give you that full price that you want. But in exchange for that, I do require that you have a little bit of patience in getting it. But I'm going to pay you for that patience. I'm going to pay you with monthly payments for a period of time, either installments against the price or as rent payments, until we pay you off in full at that full price that we agree to. Is that a model that you can work within? The people are either going to be, yes, depends on the terms, well, maybe, tell me more about this, or no, that's not something I want to do. If it's the latter, we go right into that realtor mode that I described for you last week, okay? If it's a maybe or a yes, then the next place that we're going to go is we got to learn what kind of terms we can put on this. So one of the most important things I'm going to tell you is coming out of my mouth right now. Once you get a yes or a maybe on it, quickly say, okay, do you got the house free and clear right now? Write that down. Okay, you got the house free and clear? Why do I have you do that? Because it makes it so much easier versus the confrontational question of what's your mortgage balance and what's the payment on it, which comes next, right? So I'm like, hey, you got the house free and clear? And oftentimes they'll say yes, because they do. And if they don't, oftentimes they'll say, no, we got a mortgage. We still owe like $200 on it. We still owe $350 on it. Payments like $1,700, $1,800 a month. Oftentimes they'll volunteer it without you even having to say anything. So the next thing after they've said yes or maybe to terms is, okay, do you got the house free and clear? No, there's a mortgage on it. And maybe they don't tell you the balance. So then you have to say, okay, so what's the balance on it and what is the payment on it? And they're either going to give it to you or not. If they don't give it to you, I'm going to be covering that, I think, next week when we start talking about handling objections and questions. But not enough time to go through that right now. But we do need to learn what the mortgage balance is on the property and what the payment is on it, okay? So at that point, what we've done is we've established that they are willing to take monthly payments on this, or at least consider it. And we need to learn the rest of the metrics in order to make a terms deal. right? We know what a price deal is. It's the price, and you pay it within, whatever, 30, 45 days, and it's done. When we're talking about monthly payments, however, we need to learn the full structure. So what is the full structure for one of these kinds of deals? Well, price, we still have to have a price, but we have to know what is our monthly payment. We have to know for how long do we make those monthly payments, and then we have to establish whether or not there's going to be a down payment or not. Okay, and I'm going to show you how to do that. Most people on the down payment, they use the language of, hey, we usually buy with nothing down, okay? That's, in my mind, a distant second choice to the way I'm going to show you how to do it. But you can it's still the second best way of doing it. All right, so what I like to do here is we've learned if the house is free and clear, we've learned what the mortgage balance is, and what I'll do is I'll say, okay, so great, just a few more things to go through. Let's start by going back to the price discussion. And then I'm going to try and get them a little bit lower if I can, without countering anything. There's no countering in this, okay? The whole objective is to get them to make us an offer, and then we have them verify that they're willing to do that offer by signing our paperwork and sending it back over to us so that we have an offer, and then we can go visit the house. Okay, I do this a little bit differently, and I'll cover some of that. I think that's part of next week. So there's something called the negotiation cascade. You want to see how far you can push the seller on the key points of the deal without going over the line to where somebody gets upset. So you don't have to use all of these points in the negotiation cascade, but you're essentially going to say, okay, going back to that price, is that the best that you can do? And then they're going to say yes or no. If you feel like you want to push further, then maybe they lower it a little bit. You say, well, you're headed in the right direction at least. What would be your next choice? And then see what they say there. And if they go lower still, then you keep going with it. But if they stop and say that's as low as I'm going to go, you might say, well, so are you saying? Again, it's just a question. I'm not countering. Are you saying that if I didn't get you every penny of that, it's no deal? And if they say yes to that, then you've got a pretty firm seller in terms of that metric. If they're like, well, there's probably a little room, but I don't want to get into all that. Now you haven't even seen the house. Then you make a little note that there's some flexibility there still, right? Okay. So we press a little bit further on the price. Now, the next thing we need to do is we need to learn about the monthly payment. And that's going to depend on whether or not the house is free and clear or if the house is mortgaged. If the house is mortgaged, what I tell folks is let's talk about the monthly payment. We don't want you to come out of pocket at all, so we're going to cover everything for you in our monthly payment. We're going to cover the principal, the interest, the taxes, the insurance, the HOA. We pay all of it and you pay nothing. That sounds good, doesn't it? And a lot of people will say yes. That's in that sense, you can usually just buy the property for whatever the payments are on it, and most of the time you can rent it for more than that. In certain markets you can't because the prices of the houses are too high, but that's okay because you can have negative cash flow if you're getting a big down payment from your buyer. We talked about that in our deal structuring. Now, if the house is free and clear, what we'll say is, hey, given the house is free and clear, that makes it so much quicker for us to get you cashed out. And we both want that to happen rapidly. So a low monthly payment is extremely helpful, and you've got the house free and clear. So in this case, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and cover your taxes, cover your insurance. If there's an HOA, we'll cover that. But we want to make it so that all of your expenses are covered while we work to get us all cashed out. So what does all that add up to each month? And then we'll figure that out, and then we'll tell them, okay, well, great. I'm going to go ahead and put that in as the monthly payment, and we'll cover that monthly until we get you paid off in full. That makes sense, doesn't it? Some people will do that. Others will say, no, man, I could rent it for way more than that. Oh, okay. Then we go into the negotiation cascade. Okay, what's the best you can do? Well, you're heading in the right direction. What's your next choice? Are you telling me if I don't give you all of that, that's no deal? Okay. So everything goes back to the negotiation cascade if they press back on you and they won't do it the way that we're suggesting. Okay, 2 more metrics, right? We got to find the duration and we got to figure out if there's going to be a down payment on this. So duration-wise, what I like to do is say, hey, just a couple more things. Now, the attorney and the title company are going to be giving you paperwork showing how we pay you so that you're protected. Okay, we close everything with attorneys or title companies. So for simplicity's sake, the paperwork, now this is if it's free and clear. If it's free and clear, the paperwork is going to be the same as like 90% of new notes and mortgages that come out. You're going to get one of those. So it's based on a 30-year fixed, okay? And people oftentimes will give you 30 years just based on that. Okay, nobody expects you to stay in the house for 30 years, right? That's just the way the amortization works out. Now, if the house is mortgaged, what we do is we say, for simplicity's sake, the paperwork is just prepared to match the existing term that remains on the loan. It makes it easier on everybody. But remember, we're aligned in trying to get this cashed out as quick as possible. Remember, that's how I make my money. When the buyer's new loan that comes in, that pays you off, and then I get the premium out of that. So, what the duration isn't really that big of a deal. How long would you like me to pay your mortgage off at my expense? Some people would like it for a long time, but we're aligned to get it done as quick as possible. Okay, so that's how you're handling that. I'll go through the objection handling with you guys next week because it's not going to go 100% of the time just super smooth and quick like I'm doing it here, but I'm trying to get you through the script. Okay, the last point here is this. Now, I do this totally different than everybody else. Everybody else says, okay, so not everybody else. The next layer of smart people say, hey, we usually buy with nothing down, okay? The next layer beneath that are people who start talking about how much do I have to give you down. That's stupid. Don't do that, okay? You're trying to get this for as little to no down as possible. That's your first payday. I just don't like saying, hey, we usually buy with nothing down, okay? Because as soon as somebody hears the word down payment, they expect that they're supposed to get one. Not all the time, but enough of the time that I've got a better way. And this is a better way, okay? What you do is you say, so look, that's pretty much it. I want you to know we're going to have to invest a lot of money up front in paying both your closing costs, which I volunteered to do, and mine. Okay, that's a lot of money that I'm putting up front on this house. Also, we're probably going to stage the house, spruce it up a little bit, even though it looks perfectly fine. Your decorating taste is fantastic, but I need to make it vanilla for the majority of buyers out there and stage it in a particular kind of way, make it pristine for what our buyers market likes. So in that sense, I'm going to be spending money on that as well, in addition to the closing costs that I'm paying yours and mine. And then on top of that, I'm also going to be making a couple payments on this probably before I even put my ideal person in, okay? Just coming straight out of pocket. So that means that I'm going to have a lot of money into this right up front. You'd have to acknowledge that. So given that, the first time you're going to see money from me, the first payment that you're going to get from me is going to be directly to you when our monthly payments begin. Okay, whenever our monthly payments to you begin, that's when you start seeing money from me. The price that you get comes either based on how we apply those monthly payments to the price or when we cash you out in full with the loan that comes in from our new buyer. Okay, so I'm sure you're good with all that, right? And oftentimes they'll say yes to that. And if they say, no, I need a down payment, then, oh, you do? Well, didn't I just explain that I have a ton of money down on this in the sense that I'm putting all this money up front? If I also have to give you a bunch of money down, it makes the deal a lot less attractive. It doesn't change the total amount of money you get for this house. If the price is $300 and you get 10 now and $290 later, or 20 now and $280 later, or 50 now and $250 later, it's still $300. What I'm proposing to you is I'll give you $300, which is all you were going to get anyway, but you just don't get any of that up front because I'm using all that upfront money to spruce up the house, to make a couple payments on it, to pay your closing costs, to pay mine. That's fair, isn't it? No, man, I got to have a down payment. And if they do say that, okay, well, let me know. I'm not totally opposed to it. How close to zero can you get? And then they'll answer that and you say, is that the best you can do? Well, you're heading in the right direction. What's your next choice? Are you telling me if I don't give you all of that you won't do business? Just questions, not countering. Okay, guys? That's basically the script there. The point of all of this is to get you to understand how the call flow goes. Okay, so now you've got strategy that we've talked about over the last few weeks, and you've got the flow of the call. What's going to happen next is that sellers are going to have questions or objections to certain things, concerns. We're going to learn how to do that in the following weeks. Okay? So anyway, I hope that was useful for y'all. A lot of time and effort has gone into that script, so you might have to play this back a couple times, but I think if you listen to it a couple times and really get a feel for what I'm saying, it's going to help you out a lot on those calls, and you're going to have an opportunity to get a lot more deals. Now, if you really want to juice up your ability to get a lot more deals, then get that GPS navigation system for real estate. Mainly a coach, doesn't have to be me, but somebody who can walk you through how to actually get these things closed and how to deal with some of these objections. So if you think that I might be able to help you with that, jump on a Zoom call and we'll see if it's a good fit. But I've kept y'all a little bit too long. So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and close with that. I'll come into the comments, check them all out. And I hope you all have a wonderful Saturday and a wonderful weekend. And if there's anything I can do for you, just holler at me. I'm not hard to find. Hit me on Messenger. Hit me in the comments. Peace and love, y'all. I appreciate you. Adios.